Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
All right, Vikings Vent Line every Sunday right here on the Purple Daily YouTube channel and podcast feed. Hit that subscribe button for daily Vikings entertainment. You have stumbled upon Vikings Vent Line. Whether you're a regular listener of this program, you're well aware of how this works. If you're a new listener, Vikings Vent Line is a place for you, the Vikings fan. We welcome other fans, too, that aren't just fans of the Purple, but we like to give this space for Vikings fans to voice their opinions on what's going on in the offseason, last season, upcoming expectations for the incoming season. Plenty of great stuff to get into. So if you're interested in this show, maybe you want to come on the show, hit me up. It's vikingsventline@gmail.com. That's vikingsventline@gmail.com. I monitor that inbox, and I kind of schedule out guests throughout the week. So if you'd like to be on an episode, feel free to hit me up. It's vikingsventline@gmail.com. I've met so many different Vikings fans. We've had recurring guests, of course, too, on this show. So appreciate everyone kind of being a worldwide Purple Daily listener. We really appreciate you guys. Ventline, of course, sponsored by our friends at Quick Trip and Popped Corn, which is the official flag sponsor of the Purple Daily Draft Party, which is coming up here a little less than a month away. So our friends at Popcorn, everyone's going to get a nice little tasty bag of popcorn, some of my favorite stuff. Shout out to Popcorn for helping us out and sponsoring the draft party and just making delicious, great popcorn. We appreciate them greatly. Hit that subscribe button again, too, for daily Minnesota Vikings entertainment. Let's get our guests on, though, here. We're going to talk some draft. We're going to talk some offseason stuff. So let's get Kyle and Caleb in the house here. Fellas, what's going on? How are we doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Kyle said he's in L.A. He's kind of been all over the country. He said you grew up in Jersey. You went to school in Florida. Now you're in California. And
yes, sir.
You told me you've actually met one other Vikings fan in your entire life. Is that true?
That is true. I don't know what it is. I know they're everywhere, but I just can't seem to run into them.
That's been the coolest thing about doing this show over the last 4 years, especially with the podcast YouTube kind of leaning in that we did, is I had no idea how big the Vikings fan base was. Obviously, I live here in Minnesota and in the Twin Cities, but I had no idea how big the Vikings fan base was outside of the metro. So it's pretty badass to get all these people in from not just all over the country. We've had people on from Europe and from all over the place. So we definitely appreciate them. Caleb, what's going on? Where are you in Wisconsin?
I'm in the Madison, Wisconsin area. I'm in Badger territory and Packer territory over here. So, yeah, I've been living here pretty much my whole life. I was born in St. Paul, so all my family's in the Twin Cities, so it's in my blood. But Madison, Wisconsin's kind of hard to find my group of Vikings fans. In kindergarten, thankfully, I found my first friend was a Vikings fan, and that kind of kept me going as a Vikings fan the rest of my life.
Nice, man. I love to hear it. All right, let's get into some stuff here. Let's get into some draft talk. I know both of you have kind of done your own extensive draft work. I love hearing about what fans want to do at the draft. So let's start with this first one, though, because there's a lot of talk about maybe trading up in this year's draft. And obviously the Vikings have 2 first-round picks. But Kyle, is it a deal breaker for you that you are willing or unwilling to give up next year's first-round pick to move up in the draft?
I would trade 4 first-round picks for my guy, which we'll get into that later, I'm sure. But I think the question more is it going to be necessary? And I've spent some time kind of poking around Arizona, New England, the Giants, Broncos, listening to podcast content, stuff like that, just to get the temperature from their fan base on their side of potential trades. The Pats media and their fans are 100% behind trading down. So I think that is a good option. I do think that'll take the third extra one, if not more. The Cards have kind of resigned themselves to it. I think the fans are holding the line for Marvin Harrison Jr., but they've gotten to that point where it's Austin Fort's probably going to trade down. Giants fans, I'm not convinced the Giants are going quarterback. I know that's kind of been the big fear in Viking land, but whether they draft a guy or not, they're very well aware that they don't have any wide receivers. And I wasn't really afraid of Denver trading up, so I thought maybe we could sneak in and not have to pay too much to move up, but because they don't have any draft capital. But I heard some Broncos media people talking about, could they include Patrick Surtain II in a draft package? And that kind of scares me because that's like the idea of having 2 first round picks, it's, one in the hand is better than 2 in the bush, but everyone else only has 1 in the bush. We got 2 in the bush, so that's better. But Patrick Surtain, that's 1 in the hand. Like that's an all pro player that you're getting. I ultimately think we're going to trade up with the Chargers, and I don't know that we're going to need that 2025. I can't see the Cardinals moving off Marvin Harrison Jr. without a massive bidding war. And on their, like, I know you guys talked on Thursday, I want to say, about potential trade packages, and I think the Vikings fans and Cardinals fans are pretty far apart on this. Cardinals fans think that if you're not coming to the table with 3 1s and a 3, they're not even going to listen to it. So I don't know how much they know relative to Austin for it. They probably know him a little bit better than we do, but I think it might cost more to go up to 4 than we think or want. But at the end of the day, like if KOC identifies his guy, and it's one of those top 4 guys, I really don't think there's a price too big to pay for that. But if he likes Penix, I don't know. I think Penix is a little bit slept on. He's not much of a scrambler, and there's the injury concerns, but he has like a historically low sack rate.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The man can sling it. I think he's the most accurate quarterback in the draft. He's not my preferred target, but if we ended up with Penix and that second first round pick to get like Johnny Newton, Byron Murphy, just someone defensive interior, I'm not gonna be mad at it. I might be disappointed at first, but that might end up being better for us in the long run. But to answer your question, I would trade whatever we got to trade to get KOC's guy.
All right, Caleb, what about you, man? Do you want do you set like the limit at these 2 first round picks and other things, or are you willing to part with that first round pick and more just to move up in the draft?
Yeah, so I kind of agree with all that. I'm gonna move whatever we need to get KOC's guy, right? And I think this is the most stability and cohesion the Vikings have had in years. And whatever they need to do to find their guy, whether it's KOC, Quasi working together, find your guy, right? Just find that guy and we'll work with what we got. I think whether that's JJ McCarthy, Drake May, those guys I'm kind of feeling a little bit more than the others right now. Still kind of confused. I don't know if you guys saw that photo of Jaden Daniels' elbow.
Yeah, it was
I don't know what was going on there. I don't know what that was, but I think Drake May. I'm not too fond of Michael Penix, but just because I think that the mobility, I don't know. I don't know how he'd work in KOC's offense as much. My biggest thing, and I will talk about it a little bit later, interior offensive line. No one's talking about it with the Vikings. If we want a guy and we want to protect him, Garrett Bradbury, man, you need to get better, or we need to get someone else. All right, we need a left guard. Okay, and so there's a lot of problems with that end. And I get we need our quarterback, but we got to fix that offensive line. I want to get back to those days of the Steve Hutchinsons, John Sullivan, that group right there. And on the opposite side, you got the trenches of Kevin and Pat Williams, Ray Edwards, Jared Allen. Like, build up on those and find our guy. Whatever you need to do for that, go for it. I'd prefer not to trade the first round pick next year. I can see why we might need to, depending on who it is. Hey, as long as it's not Bo Nix, I'm rolling with it.
So let's say, Caleb, quick too. Let's say they keep both their first round picks at their allotted spots and they don't take a quarterback with one of those 2 spots. Are you utterly disappointed? Is like the initial gut reaction disappointment there or no?
No, I think Darnold will be okay. He's obviously not going to be, just an all pro quarterback right away, and he probably won't ever. And that's okay. As long as we can build around him and support him. I know Kevin O'Connell can do his job to work with him. I think there's still some stuff left in the tank with Darnold that we might not have found yet. But again, building the interior offensive line, interior defensive line would be huge. Coming in and getting Byron Murphy or Devondre Sweat or Chris Jenkins on one side, and then you come in and get Cooper Beebe or some other interior offensive lines, maybe in the later rounds. And yeah, I know we'll get to that, but I think if we run with Darnold for this year, it's okay. It's not the best thing in the world, but I guess looking out to next year, the quarterback draft class doesn't seem the greatest. So if the time is now, do it. But if they maybe identify some guys that could be potential next year, it's okay to wait too.
All right, Kyle, which one of the guys are your favorite prospects here? Which, I know we've kind of named some in passing a little bit, but you've done a lot of film research. You emailed me about that. You even talked about that early on before, too. Who are your favorite prospects that you want the Vikings to go up and grab?
Maybe my favorite, I feel like we were in perfect position for, and then we took ourselves out of with the trade with the Texans. But Tavondre Sweat is just an absolute beautiful piece of man meat, and he would be unbelievable with the Vikings. Love Sweat. I love Mike Sainristil, cornerback from Michigan. He's got a little Antoine Winfield in him, undersized, but he's a tackling machine and just a massive leader for the best defense in college football. I love Malik Washington from Virginia. Luke McCaffrey is a couple wide receiver options. I haven't seen this comp, and I don't think it's a fair comp, but there's a little Debo to Malik Washington. He's small, but he's just got that thick build and just doesn't give a damn attitude. Love Christian Boyd, Northern Iowa. I think he's got a top 30 visit scheduled with the Vikings. He could be a guy that they're targeting. Pass rushing nose tackle. I love Mo Kamara, undersized defensive end. But he's just a ton of heart and hustle and great motor. Evan Anderson, nose tackle, FAU. But my absolute favorite, and because we got to go with the quarterbacks, that's what we're all here for. I am as big a JJ McCarthy fan as there is. I think his intangibles leap off the screen. I know you can't measure that, but I do think you can examine the results of intangibles. We know about the 3rd and 7 or longer, his prowess in that area, but just a couple plays. You look at the option play against Ohio State in 2022. I believe it was his 10th start. He stumbles out of the gate, slips past a couple guys, and literally runs through 3 tacklers to get a first down. They force him out of bounds. All 3 defenders end up on the ground. JJ McCarthy never leaves his feet. And then the Alabama play, the awareness, the athleticism, the arm strength, the calmness of mind necessary to pull that off is insane. But I get the questions about him, that there's a lack of volume of production. But to me, they're just that. They're questions. They're not critiques. And I take this into consideration. In college, J.J. McCarthy had 713 attempts in 28 starts. Tua, who I think, whatever your opinion on Tua is, he's been a pretty damn good quarterback in the pros. 684 attempts in 24 starts. Josh Allen at Wyoming, 649 attempts in 26 starts. Aaron Rodgers at Cal, 665 attempts in 25 games. Tom Brady, 638 attempts in 29 games at Michigan. So I don't think you can call that a legitimate critique. I just think it's something we don't necessarily know what it's going to look like because we haven't seen the massive sample size. But I just think you combine that with the intangibles. The meditation for me is a huge deal. I am a very undisciplined practitioner, but
Okay.
I can speak to its values. And I just think a 17-year-old identifying that he has a problem, looking for a solution that fits him, and then sticking to it twice a day, every day, it speaks to problem solving, proactivity, maturity, and discipline. And when I look at JJ McCarthy, I see the guy.
Hell yeah. You're right that there's definitely the misconception about like, oh, he hasn't been a starter enough, but you throw out, some of the best quarterbacks currently or ever to do it. And it's like, well, he's been in the same sample as a lot of different of those dudes. And it feels like that, a lot of Vikings fans definitely love JJ McCarthy and they like that idea. And will he go up? Will he go 2? Will he fall to 11? I mean, that's kind of the weird thing. Is it all smoke screens or is it all legitimate? Caleb, what about you, man? What are your favorite prospects in this year's draft? I know you said offensive line where no one's talking about it, but who are some of your also favorite prospects in the draft this year for the Vikes?
Yeah. Well, when it comes to the early rounds, I'm again, big JJ McCarthy believer here. If that's realistically probably someone we're going to get, I'm going to believe in him. Everything that he said, I totally agree with. Drake May could be really good. And Jaden Daniels also, he could be good. Yes, I don't know a whole ton about him, yet. And honestly, these three guys, they kind of all have the same sample size to me as besides Jin, he's got the Arizona State, but take that out of there and we go LSU time there with Drake Mays, North Carolina, Michigan, JJ McCarthy. They all kind of seem to have the same amount of sample size, and I think pretty successful for all three. So I don't think that's too much to worry about any of those guys. Cedric Van Pran, offensive center for Georgia. That guy is huge. He's strong. He's sturdy. He's physical. Every single time he gets up, he just has a burst of energy, and he goes after that interior defensive line. I really like that. Thinking about later rounds, Luke McCaffrey, always going after that guy in those mock drafts. My biggest one, Mason Smith. That guy, I think, has a lot of potential. I know he was projected to be a first round pick early, and then last year kind of some stuff went on and dropped his value. I think there's something to work with there. He's got the size. Tory Taylor, let's get him on the Vikings. We need to get a elite punter there. And last but not least, I know you guys have mocked him a lot. Drake Nugent from Michigan.
Michigan.
Okay, you guys love him on Purple Daily. Here's the deal why I like him. A close friend of mine and colleague, no relation at all, but Brad Nugent. He was a former center at Southern Miss. His quarterback was Nick Mullins, one of my good friends. He was, he was Nick Mullins' center in college.
Okay.
He told me he's the biggest Packers fan in the world. He told me if he goes to any team, he will get a Drake Nugent jersey. So let's get him on the Vikings so we can get him a Vikings jersey. But those guys all, Tavondre Sweat, Cooper Beebe, that guy looks awesome. These are guys I want the Vikings to go after. Brownlee Jr. from Louisville looks solid. A lot of good talent around that third and fourth round, I think. My question is, how much are we going to get in that third? I think once you hit to like the later fourth, it's going to start to drop off. And obviously, like Declan, like you said the other day, the draft can be random. All these mock drafts, I feel like whether it's me mocking for the Vikings or my friends mocking for the Packers, it seems to be kind of the same guys that we're all mocking. I'm wondering if these guys that get mocked are going to go a lot higher than we think, right?
Yep.
Because we say, oh, wow, it looks like there's good value. But in reality, do these teams realize, oh, yeah, these guys are pretty good, and they might go a round or two earlier than we expect? So I think there's going to be a real talent drop off from that early fourth round on. So I'm hoping the Vikings can move up into that third round if they can to get some of those guys.
I like it, man. You both you guys have done your homework here. I mean, some significant names here, names maybe that haven't been thrown out before, names we have heard about. Love it. Great, love the research. Appreciate you guys stepping in here, educating the Purple Daily audience. I know there's others that are probably in your guys' shoes too that have been doing the same thing. So nice to hear a little bit of a refreshment of all these different prospects for the Vikings. Kyle, how about off-season moves though? Getting out of the draft and looking what Kwesi has done in the last month or last really few weeks of the off-season. Which one to you kind of stands out as the most that you like the best so far?
There's a couple things. It's kind of a really small, insignificant thing, but I love that we finally have the money and the willingness to spend more than the vet minimum for some defensive depth. I feel like since the back half of the Zimmer era, we've just been filling holes with just trash, to be completely honest. No offense to these gentlemen, they're giving it their all, but when they got to step in, it hasn't been great. So, Jihad Ward, Camus, Grugier Hill, Shaq Griffin, Jerry Tillery, they're not the most exciting or sexy names, but when guys start getting injured in late September, October, and we need guys to play a bigger role, I think we're much better poised to deal with that than we have been in the past. But the biggest thing for me, I think, was letting Kirk walk. And it's not I like Kirk. I have nothing against Kirk. But for me, it really crystallized Kwesi's plan. And the 2022 draft aside, I feel like I can clearly see now what competitive rebuild actually meant for the past 2 years. Every single regular season game we've played in this regime has had playoff implications. But here we sit, we've got a roster purged of old bad contracts, an infusion of second contract defenders, nuclear arsenal on offense, ton of future cap space, and we have the draft capital to go get the franchise guy that our coach identifies. So aside from those few picks that haven't really panned out, it's hard not to look back and feel like the skies have sort of cleared, and now we can see what Kwesi's been doing and say, like, he had a plan and he's been executing it nearly perfect.
Yeah, dude. Having the cap space available to go out and not just it was weird. Like some of the depth guys that you listed, those would have been like I think what you're trying to say too is like those would have been built as the marquee guys over the last few years, where it's not even that the depth guys won't help them, because I think they will help them. They're going to need it. But they haven't been able to be big spenders like this, at least in terms of a plethora of positions, in years. I think like 2014, right, when they went and got like Linval Joseph and Captain Munnerlin, and they went out and made like some spending there, which was big for them. They had to go out and spend a little bit. This year with saying goodbye to Kirk, replacing Daniil Hunter, obviously with Grenard was a big one for them too. So they've been able to kind of replenish some of those cupboards with the open space they've had. Caleb, how about you, man? What offseason moves have you really liked this offseason?
Yeah, I definitely would think ripping the Band-Aid off with Kirk overall will be a good thing for us. I loved Kirk. Awesome dude, great quarterback. In Packers country here, everyone's like, oh, Kirk is not it. I was a firm believer in him. But honestly, for the way he just wanted too much money, I'm really glad we ripped that Band-Aid off, because whether we like it or not, we need to take it off, let the wound heal a little bit, let the air get to it. But I'm glad we let Kirk walk. It's bittersweet for sure. Letting Davenport walk, that guy just stole money from the Vikings. So, I mean, that was solid. Being able to let go of like kind of those lower end guys, Dean Lowry, who did nothing for us, be able to get a little cap space to then, get good contracts like Van Ginkel. We're not spending a whole lot on him, but he is a solid player. Grenard is going to be awesome. Aaron Jones. And those little veterans pieces, Shaq Griffin in that DB room could be big. Just with how many young guys we have right now, and not sure where they stand in their position of roster depth, but getting Shaq in there to help as a veteran presence is good.
What about any other last takes, Kyle? Any other last takes? Any other shout outs you'd love to give here on Vikings Vent Line? Anything else you weren't able to get off your chest so far? Fire away, man.
Yeah, here I got something for you. Hopefully this will put Vikings fans a little bit more at ease as the nerves set in, we get closer to draft time.
Okay.
I've been working on a study, rookie first-round quarterbacks from 2012 to 2021, so a 10-year span where they've had at least 3 years of development in the league. I broke them down into 4 categories. The rookies coming in with a rookie coach and a rookie GM, coming in with just a rookie coach, coming in with a veteran coach and a veteran GM, and then any one from those 3 categories whose coach was fired within a year of them being drafted.
Okay.
The Vikings right now firmly sit with veteran coach and GM. The regime's had 2 years on the job prior to this, so they've got their feet wet a little bit. I don't see any scenario short of Kevin O'Connell sailing out onto Lake Minnetonka with some ladies of the night from Magic City. I don't see him getting fired in any situation other than that. So I think they're firmly in that category. I took these names, cross-checked it against a list of quarterbacks from that same chunk of time who had the same offensive play caller for the first 3 years of their development. This is the list: Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, Trey Lance. Lamar Jackson gets an exception. He had Marty Morningweg his first year, but he didn't play his first 4 years as a starter. He had Greg Roman and Patrick Mahomes. So that's pretty damn good company. I then took those names and I looked at which of these guys had a Pro Bowl receiver coming in and at least 2 Pro Bowl caliber offensive linemen. That list was narrowed down to one name: Patrick Mahomes. That's the situation that we have set up for our Vikings right now. Now, I'm not saying whoever we draft is going to be Patrick Mahomes unless it's J.J. McCarthy, in which he's going to be the greatest of all time. But don't quote me on that. But we are in the best position for a rookie quarterback, other than the Chiefs, in the past 15-ish years. Let's get excited, gentlemen.
Hell yeah.
It's time. It's
Let's
time.
do it.
I
Come
like
on
it.
now.
Yeah, the infrastructure that whoever is stepping in here, yeah, to your point, they're not coming in asking to be the man. You are kind of asking to drive a car that's already been souped up and already has everything taken care of it. You're not trying to run this beater into the ground by any means. Yeah, those are a good list, man. Good research. I love it. Caleb, how about you, buddy? Any last takes? Any other shout outs you'd love to give? Fire away.
Yeah, I guess I'll go get rid of my shout outs here on my list here. First of all, I got to shout out my wife. This is my first time I've ever been on a podcast, so she
Okay.
let me have the house to myself and not distract me, so that's good. So I had to shout out Hallie there. My dad Jeff, my mom Dana, my brother Noah, and my other siblings for always having someone to lean on to talk Vikings, Twins, any Minnesota sports in Packer and Badger country, especially when it got tough for some years. All my buddies and family listening today, Nuge, Dunks, Lucas, Aaron, Cork, Eric, and the rest of my family. This has been good and it's been fun. Thanks for having me.
Nice, man. Appreciate it. Where'd you grow up in St. Paul?
So I was born in St. Paul. I honestly only lived there a couple of years.
Okay.
My family lives in Woodbury right now.
Okay. That's where I'm at.
My extended family. Yeah, great area.
Okay. Yep. So that's where
Eventually
I'm
the
at.
goal will be to get there at some point. So
Yeah. Heck yeah, man. I love
Yeah.
it. Kyle, any shout? I know you only got the one Vikings friend you've ever met, but any shout outs you'd love to give here before we wrap up?
Yeah, shout out my friends Tanner, shout out Garrett and Zach. Without them, I would have never been a diehard football fan. And I got to shout out my friend Adam Dobrovolsky. He's doing some incredibly cutting edge work with regression statistics. It's been a long process, but remember that name, Adam Dobrovolsky. He is doing some game changing work with statistics in the football realm.
Nice, man. Shout out to him. Appreciate everyone listening. Appreciate you two guys bringing some awesome Vikings knowledge here for the Purple Daily audience. If anyone wants to be on a future episode, you can hit me up. It's Vikings Vent Line at gmail.com. Would love to hear from many of you. Acknowledge us. That's right. Caleb, I don't know if you're a wrestling fan, but we do acknowledge our tribal chief on this show. But yeah, let's acknowledge. Everyone acknowledge. I love
All
it.
right, there we go.
Hell yeah.
Appreciate you guys.
Yep. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for having us.